Welkom bij deze speciale podcast van De Groene Amsterdammer. Wat is er nu mooier dan theater, muziek, dans en opera in volle bezetting, in volle zalen, in een zomers Amsterdam. Kortom, deze podcastserie maken we over het Holland Festival. Vorig jaar bestond het 75 jaar, dus dit jaar maken we de 76e editie mee. Zoals altijd heeft het Holland Festival een associate artist, een kunstenaar die samenwerkingen aangaat, grenzen overschrijdt en genres doorbreekt. Dit jaar is dat zangeres, componist en beeldend kunstenaar Anoni. In deze podcastserie blikken wij vooruit op het programma van het festival en praten wij met kenners, critici en met de makers zelf. Welcome to this special podcast from De Groene Amsterdammer. My name is Christiaan Weijts and today we are talking about Jérôme Bel. Jérôme Bel is a French-based choreographer and he wrote something that he called an autobiography about his work as a choreographer and his involvement with the world around him. As he no longer travels himself because of the climate concerns, his story will be told and adapted in Amsterdam by local artists Magdalena Kozlowska and Pankaj Tiwari. And they are both here. Welcome, Maria Magdalena. Welcome, Pankaj.
Hey, hello.
First of all, this Jérôme Bel, he doesn't travel anymore. Did you already know him before you started this project?
Yeah, of course. Being an artist who works in performing arts, I would say it's quite hard not to know stumble across the name of Jérôme Bel. And since in Poland, I'm originally from there. I lived in Warsaw for most of my life, and I worked with choreographers and dancers a lot. And so Jérôme Bel was at some point in a certain period of time was like this hero of contemporary dance who would ask questions about spectacle and spectacularity in dance. So to me, he was always a classic. So that's very interesting to be remixing his own work about his own autobiography.
Yeah. We'll come to talk about that later on. And Pankaj, you also knew this Jérôme Bel. Is he one of the big names in the field?
No, I didn't know because I was new to Europe. I came on 2019.
Yes.
So I wasn't aware of Jérôme Bel or his practice. But I was at Theater Spectral in Zurich, like in 2019 as artist residence, and where the ideas of not traveling was quite prevalent. So there was conversation about him. So I knew the idea, but I didn't know the person. So only when Holland Festival invited us, when we were meeting, I said that, I don't know the person at all. But then I started reading about him and I realized that this is the same person about whom or whose ideas we are talking to, but I didn't know the person at all.
All right. And how did this collaboration between Bel and you come about? Who took the initiative? How do these things work? Why you two?
Well, I think that's a question to the Holland Festival. Yeah. Maybe they would answer it better because they were the ones who approached us. We've been working together for quite some time now, me and Pankaj. As the Academy of New Rituals, so I suppose that was the idea, to invite both of us to be on stage working with this idea, because usually I think it's just one performer on stage, so this is quite an unusual choice, but
usually it's one performer on the stage for this.
Jérôme Bel
for the performance Jérôme Bel. Maybe we should first explain it to the listeners what kind of performance this is. It is what he calls an autobiography. So it's autobiography and choreography.
Yeah, so basically, as you mentioned before, that Jérôme Bel was a choreographer who also did a lot of experimental work, and the piece which we are invited to create comes within this sustainable theatre project, where he and Katie Michel from UK, they both together started this idea of sustainable theater project, and they thought that what can be the future of theater and how theater can respond to this idea of sustainability.
Yes.
And the basic idea was that they created work, and they said that the work will travel, but they will not travel, and work will be created by local artists with the resources which are locally generated and produced. Now with this work which we are invited to create, have a autobiography of Jérôme Bel, where he talks about his own works, and there are some video element of his work, and he also talk about what was his politics when he was creating the work, and when he stopped traveling, why he stopped traveling, and how does that impact to others. So this is one part of the work.
Yes, and this part of the work is given to you in the form of texts. It's scripts.
Yes, and then the other part is because we as maker are going to create the work when Holland Festival invited. We are also responding how we see this and what is what should be the future generation see from it. So that's where we come in. So that's what the choreography part is, and the other part is where the autobiography as well as the video element of his earlier works are there.
Maybe it's interesting to add that by now, Jérôme Bel created a few portraits of other artists, well-known dead choreographers, but also a bit less known dancers, for example. And so it's like a consequence of his practice of many years that now finally he kind of turned his gaze onto himself. I think it's
so first
quite
he
significant.
Made portraits of others, and now he's turning the gaze inside. Yes.
Yeah, you might say so.
You two, you work together in what you call the Academy of New Rituals. Can you tell us something about this Academy of New Rituals? And is what you're doing, is this somewhere in line with the ideas of Jérôme Bel?
We started working together around 3 years back, and we were mostly working with the city of Amsterdam, utilizing the public spaces, whatever resources already there in the city. So without bringing a stage or set, but what is already there. So we were working in parks, we were also working in public spaces. That is where our collaboration started. And this was the time when we both were having conversations, but I was working as curator and Maria was working as a maker. And then after working for 1.5 years, we decided that now we want to create work together because we feel that we understand each other. And this is where the Academy of New Ritual begins. So the idea of sustainability was there already in the work. How we see it is like, we feel that rituals are important and we want to create new rituals. That's where we come in. There are two works within the frame of the Academy which we produce. One is called Opera to the People, and this is where we do opera in a boat in the canals of Amsterdam, in the lake of Zurich, and in the Berlin. Now this year we are also opening this at Belwaard Festival in Freiburg. And the other work which we produced last year was called The Listeners, where we go and sit in a huge space for 8 hours a day. And we invite audience to speak what they want to say. Yes. And there's no documentation, there's no camera, it's only one person. And this is the frame, the artistic frame where we started the Academy.
Yeah. So this rituals is also because in Western society we are losing touch with performing rituals, coming together, and
yeah, definitely. This is what we were missing a little, especially in such let's say secular country as the Netherlands, and where we come from. Like public repeated practices are a very important part of culture, whether we agree with the ideology or not. They are part of who we are and what we grew up with, and we found it very interesting to look into the structure of the practices of our ancestors and think how they can be relevant for how we can actually use the social context that is already there, how we can use the resources that are already there. It's about being aware of the social context, sometimes even bringing it to the foreground, like we do in Opera to the People, where we propose a show that you cannot avoid, but you also cannot see the whole thing because it's always escaping you somehow and always moving. And also opera, I work a lot with the voice and with classical musicians and opera singers because I believe that this is still a very conservative field that can still use some opening and experimentation, and this is what we're trying to do.
Yes, so this almost sounds as if you are turning it into a form of street art, or is that not the word? Because it is an unexpected performance.
Yeah, so my position will be that we don't claim it street art, and the reason is because every time the market want to frame your work in a certain way. Now what we like these structures, and we want to rework and reimagine the structure. Mm-hmm. Whether it is for listeners, whether the structure is from our ancestors, but the meaning we are making, and through our performative and artistic gesture we are making. Even in opera is usually for classes. It's very classist in nature, but we like the structure and the power of it, and we want to reimagine to the public space. This is where we are. Yeah. We don't want to claim it street art. But there's no disrespect.
Yeah, I would say that we are maybe come more from like this situationists or Dadaists and performance art. That's a bit more rough tradition of and the idea that art is actually already very important and vital part of society.
Yes. And can you link this to the work that you're working on now of Jérôme Bel? Of course, there is this links with the sustainable theater, but are there any other links?
Basically, when I was contacted by Holland Festival, they also contacted me because I recently created a work. It's called Paper Plane.
Yes, that is a project that you did, the paper planes, and a kind of performance installation with all this paper folded planes.
So basically one thing that we both work as collective, and the second thing we both work as individual artists, and we talk and support each other. So with this project, which was my project called Paper Plane, where Maria was a conversation partner and also helped a lot, is that I was the first person in the family who have taken aeroplane. And when I came to Europe, people were saying that flying is bad.
Yes.
And I was saying, what the shit,
Yes.
So for me, this idea of sustainability, when it is just taken for the market needs, not understanding, like when you decide a global ethicality, where does individual realities like mine exist in that, and where does those conversations are. So these are some questions around this. I started making, so I make 15,000 paper planes, and 15,000 is also the number we need in our account for the visa.
You made them yourself one by one.
Yes, this is how it is. So that is where what my take on sustainability was. I was working on it. And because we both were, Maria's recent production was around consumerism and all for the Frascati production. So this is our both individual stakes were, and then we both were invited by Holland to, because the takes were totally different than Jérôme Bel's take, but also in a similar direction. So it's a different path, but the goal is similar. We all are talking the same thing. So this is where...
The funny thing is that, about time, I mean, when we were invited by the Holland Festival, we actually also started conceiving our new work that was called No. And it's all about the exit strategies, about refusal, about protest as an action, also about like refusal as theatrical gesture. So somehow it probably will merge into one project right now, because it feels like the connection is so significant.
the project No will emerge to one project together with...
with the Jérôme Bel. I mean...
With Jérôme Bel.
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, let's see. Maybe we will still, because I really love the title and just the pure, simple, strong No.
Yeah, it's a very good title, indeed.
Definitely will continue, but some of the ideas that we already had, I think, will find their manifestation in Jérôme Bel, in the Jérôme Bel project, because we were just interested in this quite unpopular. I mean, we talk about protesting a lot, but actually, especially in the context of market and of the art world, saying no to things is a huge privilege, and not many artists have it. And so for example, many people find themselves in a position where they cannot really refuse, when they cannot really say no to things, which of course provoked us to explore all the ways to say no, including the exit, the theatrical exit as a gesture and as a strategy. So Pankaj already was working with a person who developed this method called the theater of the oppressed, which also involves the invitation for the audience to participate in a rehearsal of a protest or of a refusal of something. So we are inspired by all those things, and as I said, I feel like they're going to influence how we see the Jérôme Bel project a lot. And also, of course, Jérôme Bel said no to flying, said no to buying new props, said no to renting anything. So this is also
new costume.
No new costumes.
And does this Jérôme Bel say yes to this idea, or doesn't he have to say yes? Because when we look at this process, do you have the freedom to bring in whatever you want, or are you just the puppets that Jérôme Bel is using? There must be some kind of balance between keeping to his idea and your personal freedom as an artist.
This is a very good question.
Yes.
And that is where we started. So, for example, when a festival like Holland called us, and I wasn't aware who's the person, and Maria was aware, and we started talking. And before saying yes, we met to the curator of the festival, and she seems very nice. We explained all these things, and she said that if it was going to be a puppet, we would have invited an actor to read the text.
Yes.
But we are inviting you as a maker, and I know your practices, and it's like, so we don't see it as the anti-Jérôme Bel piece. Rather, we see that the questions and the politics which he raises are very relevant at his time. And we as a maker of contemporary time also have a say, and we see these both as a value rather than as a tension, you know. Yeah. So this is where we are. We started having the conversation, and we have artistic freedom. Even Jérôme Bel was very nice that he said that, yes, I created this was my baby, but now, as I say, also sustainability doesn't mean only that you recite it, you know. Sustainability also means that the local artists whom you're claiming that can do it, they should have this access of artistic freedom to respond to it. So it's like, this is where we are. So this is a very good question, but the response is, we are not puppet, we are makers.
Yes,
okay. But how many freedom do you have? But now you're in the process of making this piece. Is Jérôme Bel watching online or
no, absolutely
on
not.
The phone, Skyping with you? He's just hands off.
No, as we said, no.
No, I don't think to be perfectly honest, I think that why the project is so interesting for us is because we can take part in this conversation as maybe a different generation to Jérôme Bel, where I would say more or less 10 years younger than he is, and it feels like we already have a bit of a different view on those things. And one of the most important pillars of sustainability is the intergenerational distribution of resources, of knowledge, of social processes. So that was quite important for us, that we have freedom not to contradict anything, but just to ask the questions that seem to be relevant for us, because it feels like one big subject in this project is, of course, sustainability, but another one is identity, is is that's something that Jérôme Bel has been working with for years, and now we have the chance, we have the opportunity to present our take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to add one thing, that in terms of restrictions, we have this, that we cannot buy any costume from outside. In the theater, whatever is there, we have to only use those things, so we cannot rent any light or those things. So this is the restriction. The other restriction, what are the other? I think this is
the team. The team, the crew cannot be too big. Like, we don't have so much time to rehearse or to do the montage. But then that's all. I find it interesting. It's a bit like Dogma, but in theater.
Yes, but the restrictions are, I think, sometimes very good for creativity. If you have some limitations, that forces you to move.
Yeah, but also I feel that limitation is in the context, because the idea of the project was this sustainable theater project, which they started, and that is the limitation. Like, that's why we don't buy new things. But content-wise, I feel as much we agreed or we negotiated that we have all the freedom.
The frame that you got was the text, costumes...
and videos.
And some videos. Okay. And you have to use all the videos, all the text, or...
We have to do. Now, this is where we as artists come, I mean, you give a text.
Yes.
Give me any text now.
Yes.
I can do the way I want. I will do mantras. None of your text will exist. But this is not what we are doing. But what I'm saying is this is where, as a maker, we are not...
the text is just a rough material which you can fold in any
I wouldn't say
form.
it's rough material. It's just that the performance of text is, I think, negotiable, and the context in which the text is set. It's pretty, I would say, plain in terms of being pretty. It's factual. It's about what happened. It's an autobiographical text. So it's not about the text itself, I feel, but it's more like who is speaking and in what context and how and for how long. So those are all the features around the actual text that matter most, in my opinion.
And I would like to say for the listeners, actually, people who are listening, that while the text is plain, the performance is not plain. So we are makers and we are going to make it our way. So when the given text is about a person, but we personally are not that person. We are totally a different individual from different reality and different identities. And the performance is not going to plain.
But I would say that it's already interesting that the text that was written by somebody who is let's say in a different place career-wise and in a different social and political position than us, he's a French white man, then of course whatever words he's using when they are spoken through our mouth, they have a completely different impact and they have a completely different meaning, even subversive, I would say, because of course the conditions that we grew up in are completely different.
And this piece, Jérôme Bel, was performed earlier in other countries. Did you watch this or see registrations of it? Because I can imagine that you don't want to be influenced too much, but it can help you to have a sense of what is possible.
Yeah, so I mean, this piece has been once performed by Jérôme Bel himself, I think in France, and then also in the Swiss-French part by some other person. Then part of this was also, because this is the whole project supported by 14 institutions, part of this was also performed in Ghent. And we talked to this other performer who did it, but we watched one video which was there, but it's like it was same as Jérôme Bel performed before. So it is not.
Yeah, they were playing with the identity a bit more, I'd say, and about the idea of embodiment of the author. I think we're going to different direction where we kind of present our part of the conversation about sustainability and identity and spectacle.
And how does this process between you work? Because you're still working on it. can you give us an idea? Because it's of course for the listener it's quite abstract what is happening. But can you give a sense of what are we going to see and how do you make this? Are you're going into the theater now and you're reading it and discussing it, or are you?
So this is what we cannot say in one part, that because this is the way we said that the text was, if you see the earlier performance, it was like somebody's reading the text.
Yeah.
But it is not the only thing we are doing. Of course, there is also reading the text because this is part of the text. Mm-hmm. But then there are other things. So we both are performing on this stage. So this is also the new thing that, usually only one person perform, but here we both are performing. And sometimes one person is at the stage, the other person is not at the stage. So it's not only the text, but there's also actions. There are some videos of his work, but there's also some performance and choreography from our side in the performance. So there are multiple things. I wish that I could put the full menu, but for now the first course is
yes.
Yeah, we already started working during our residency that Pankaj curated in IIT Gandhinagar in India. So we had a privilege of spending time there, and we also dedicated this time to really give a chance to the text, to listen to it, to hear its rhythm, its tempo, and to see different possibilities that it offers, and different provocations, different traps that it sets for us. So I feel like we had a very interesting time with the text itself, and now we're continuing the work, but so I'd say that we are already quite far in the conceptualizing phase, and then of course the execution can bring a lot of surprises, which can take us into the directions that we don't even suspect exist yet.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think a little bit about a performance that was held in the Netherlands during the corona pandemics, the lockdown. Then at many theaters at the same moment arrived one envelope which contains the text of a monologue written by, I forgot his name, I think it was a Korean guy. So they were all performing the same piece in all these theaters, and the actors didn't know what was coming out of it. Well, of course this is different, but it's also the concept of the author somewhere far away, and you as a performer having to make something out of it.
Well, this is what classical theater is, right?
Yes,
People still
it's
bring to stage Molière or Shakespeare. It feels like, and not to mention opera, where such a huge part of the program is always very classical works that have been rearranged and rethought so many times. So it feels like, in that sense, it's actually pretty classical move.
Yes. But of course, Jérôme Bel, he says he doesn't want to travel by plane, but of course he can come here by train. I think
he will come to watch the show.
He is going to watch. Okay.
I hope so.
Great. Oh yeah. He also said a few years ago, a journalist asked him, "Why do you make your work?" And he said, "Well, I do this to save the world."
I don't do theater to save
Saving the world with art. Is this also a motivation for you? Do you think it's possible to save the world, or is it even a goal for you?
I think, as I said, we represent a bit of a different generation, which has a bit of a different view on, I don't know how to say that, like even the ego of an artist. It feels like it's a very big statement, and it's a very noble and beautiful motivation. However, I feel like the idea of putting a responsibility on an individual does not really work anymore, and we have to put our egos aside and work towards a collective action very often. And my question, my like counter question would be also like, what would that mean to save the world? In what sense? From what? From whom? And in what perspective? I would maybe it's also a bit of an old-fashioned statement, but I feel like making art is already a lot. It's already a lot for so many people. That for people who are lonely, who are maybe not adjusting so well to society, art gives a certain kind of world, of a universe where they can take refuge, where they can really find themselves, where they can talk to others, where the miracle of communication happens. And I feel like it's already so much that I don't know if it's the art who needs to save the world, to be honest.
But perhaps all these things that you mentioned can be a way of saving the world in a non-direct way. Pankaj.
Yeah, no, I want to say that first, no, I don't feel that I create work to save the world. And I also feel that this responsibility should not be on individual or artist. And I will give you a concrete example. If you see the data, it's 1.3% is the problem from the flight pollution. 96% from the corporate who pay us to say that flying is bad. Now, I'm going to tell you, I believe in sustainability, and I am in whole family, nobody travel ever in flight. And if you are traveling from Amsterdam to Berlin, for sure it's a problem. But somebody living very far, if they will not have access to this is a huge shift. For me, it was a dream. And sustainability, when you see it in a smaller direction of flying, it is not going to affect anything. If you feel greenery is going to make it sustainable, there are a lot of communities which are so green and they are still dying for food. They still don't have hospitals. They still don't have schools.
Yes.
When we see it, we should see it from a global position, and also as a whole. It cannot be one country cannot be sustainable if the neighbor country situation is bad. For one of my work, which I collaborated with another artist, was that I walked from here to Calais. It was 364-kilometer walk. And this was to support the migrant worker who were walking back home. The whole money which came went there. But what I'm saying that if I say by doing this, No.
It's less focused on the person, the ego of the artist.
As Maria said,
more as a collective.
As Maria said, it's very first. I feel that it should not be artist's responsibility. Artists can give a direction towards it, but it is not that they're going to say. The second thing, I think we are just part of the biggest structure and system, and we have to find way that how structurally we can change things rather than put a structural problem on individual guilt, and that can create actually a better sustainable society.
But I think there is a contradiction between I want to save the world and saying no, or perhaps is this on the same direction, saying no to... It's a very same direction.
It's a very same direction. Why? Because if you see at the current time when the right-wing extremism is going high, the reason is because of certain political correctness. We don't speak the truth sometimes. And just to be nice at a public place. While what we believe might be totally opposite. While the other side is saying that we are bad. And they are publicly saying we are bad, and everybody... What we are saying, if one thing, we need to be honest. That is very important. And to say something good, if we forget the honesty, then our practice is totally different. That's why it doesn't make sense. Listen, my life is sustainable, okay? And I don't sell it in the market. And our practices are, sometimes it is also because of the condition we have. So there are two ways to see sustainability. One is in your living practice. The other is for the tick boxes to sell in the market. Now, if we actually do it in the living practice, it is really going to change the world. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Maria.
Yes. No. Sorry, I just wanted to say, because I was inspired, but I mean, or triggered, or both, by the word honesty, and I think it's very important to remember that that's honesty for sure, but it's also. How to say that, like being aware of what's relevant. This is also very important. Like, what is the community that we want to work for? And what are the needs? What are the setbacks? What are the ambitions? What are the goals of very specific people? Because I'd say that the world is also such a general notion that doesn't really mean anything anymore. I believe that smaller actions for the communities can sometimes do so much more by solving a very concrete problems. And I feel like the climate crisis is just it can be also like empty empty notion. Again, if we do not specify, if we do not work locally, which Jérôme Bel, by the way, does, that's the idea, to work locally and to give the agency to local artists. And in that sense, it's a very beautiful and generous gesture, because of course, let's not forget that it's a great opportunity to be part of that challenge. However, speaking of honesty, I feel like it's our obligation as makers to take part in this discussion and to be open and to be honest about our perspective in it, because otherwise I feel like there is no point.
Yes, so being open and honest also implies that you can have critic to Jérôme Bel or criticize him, or
it's just maybe also asking questions about some of the gestures. It's not that we do not agree. It's completely not that. But we feel like the opposite. On the contrary, we feel like those questions are so important, and this discussion is just too important not to follow up on certain maybe doubts that we have, and the doubts are not about the action or the gesture. Maybe sometimes about phrasing it. But I feel like this is the obligation of any maker who deals with somebody else's words. Like, it's to ask questions and to see what this person could actually really mean, because more than one voice is always much more powerful than just a monologue.
Yes. Well, Pankaj, you have something.
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing, when we were talking about this honesty and trying out honestly, and sustainability, when we did the listeners, for example, listeners is not sustainable for market. We still did it because we believe in the work. And I'm going to say why it's not sustainable for the market. Market works on numbers. If we don't have 39 euro per audience, we don't get funding.
Yeah.
We didn't have 39 euro, but we believe that people, when we talk about sustainable and safe spaces, the system want 300 people in 100 square meter. Now, when I am invited in a 300 people in 100 square meter, I don't feel that I can speak. I really need a personal space because it's a new country for me. We believe in that thing. We went and we did it even without funding because we believe in that idea. Now, what I'm saying is that once we take that step, that's towards it. So it's not only in the text what we say, but if also in the practice, practice. And I think that was such a nice project we initiated, and we still couldn't marketly sustain it because market cannot get money from it, and we're still doing it. This year also we'll do because we believe in it, So how to take, as an artist, how to create discourse rather than to follow the discourse of the market. I think sustainability will be this frame where we can also create the discourse rather than the discourse are created by the market and we have to follow it.
Yes.
This is our position.
We could talk about this longer, but I see that we are almost coming to the end of the podcast. Thank you very much for telling us about the making process of Jérôme Bel, and I think we're all very curious about the performance. So I wish you very beautiful performances during the festival and a lot of joy making them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Holland Festival wordt mogelijk gemaakt door het ministerie van OCW, de gemeente Amsterdam, productiepartner Amodo, hoofdbegunstiger Fonds 21, HF Business Partners, particuliere fondsen, mede mogelijk gemaakt door Institut Français NL en vele vrienden.